Hey everybody, so I didn't like the 5th season of Black Mirror, and I figured that instead of making some big holistic video essay about it, I'd just review each of the 3 episodes and tell you all about them. If you end up disagreeing with me about Black Mirror, even after I say my sweet points, we can't be friends. But if it turns out you do agree with me, we actually can be friends, and we'll most for sure hang out and stuff, so just keep that in mind. Anyway, spoilers. Spoilers for all of you. Let's get started. So let's start with Rachel, Jack, and Ashley 2, an episode I honestly think is atrocious. And it's a shame that I thought it was so bad, because the episode starts off really strong as far as I'm concerned. When I saw the first act, where Rachel, a teenage girl, obsesses over an idealized version of her favorite pop star and develops a relationship with that pop star's creepy robot, I had a strong sense that there was a lot of ideas the episode had at its disposal. I thought it was ripe territory to discuss parasocial relationships, the way that grief and social isolation create the desire to form one-sided connections with people you don't know or understand. At its core, the episode seems to present the question, what should Rachel choose? An artificial world of positivity and escapism and affirmation as represented by the Ashley robot?
If you believe in yourself, you can do anything.
Or the real, painful, and substantial world as represented by the actual Ashley? That's cool. It's like 8th grade, but with robots. Yes, please. But after the first act, after the conceit of the episode is established, everything completely falls apart, and it does so in the blink of an eye. See, at around the halfway point of the episode, Ashley 2, the Ashley robot, becomes sentient. As it turns out, the designers of the robot actually put the pop star's entire mind into it. And now, after the robot discovers that the original Ashley is in a coma, the robot's brain power activates, and she becomes exactly the same as Ashley, the real person. Now, I get why this is a fun choice for the writers to make. Watching the Ashley robot be sassy and human is kind of fun and goofy. I do see the appeal. But to me, this decision completely destroyed the episode. Because in a single moment, all of the narrative and thematic tension of the episode is unceremoniously thrown out the window. Suddenly, the protagonist, Rachel, no longer has a choice to make between the real person and the artificial version of her. If there is a choice, it's a choice between 2 nearly identical options.
Why is that thing talking like that? All real. They broke the limiter, so I am you. Your whole brain, I'm all of you.
So, Rachel has no opportunity to have a character arc. No ability to create a meaningful story for the audience. Because the conflict she faces is resolved for her, and resolved in a way that tells us very little about who she is. And the effect of this decision is striking. The episode basically forgets about Rachel. Come on, guys, now we're watching a worse version of E.T. Rachel has to get her best friend, the robot, back to Ashley. There's a good team, Ashley and her pals, and a bad team, the mean aunt who just wants money and will use the image of Ashley to get it.
I powdered your pill stash and put it in your food. But don't worry, your career's gonna hold up just fine.
And after Rachel decides to go on this little mission, she literally doesn't make a choice. She's just along for the slapsticky goofball ride, and could be replaced with any other generic character. These questions, like, what does it mean that pop stars exist? Are the people who love them and see them as idols helped by that fact? Can these artificial, one-sided relationships be positive, or are they fundamentally toxic? They just get thrown out in the sweep of watching Ashley fight against the man so that she can express herself. Looking at the latter half of the episode, we have to wonder why the former, far more interesting half was even there. Now, look, I know what an apologist for Rachel, Jack, and Ashley 2 would say to me at this point. Why are you putting so many expectations on this show? It doesn't want to be understood here as a standard episode in a sci-fi anthology series. Look at its Disney pop aesthetic. Look at its slapstick heist scenes.
What?
Its shockingly long chase sequence. Watch the antagonist look into the camera and say, "Oh fuck."
Oh, fuck it.
Dude, just meet it where it's at. And no, I don't think this is a good defense. For one thing, there's often a pressure with cheeky, self-reflective media like this episode to just accept whatever decisions it makes. This is what they wanted it to be like, so it must be kinda good, right? And honestly, I disagree with this philosophy pretty vehemently. Like, I'm a huge fan of sci-fi anthology stuff, how it focuses on its conceits, how tight it is, how it usually centers on social commentary in some way. And it doesn't make me a worse media consumer to want something like that out of Black Mirror. And to watch an episode of the show start down that path and then just forget about it, I don't know, it's viscerally disappointing. It feels bad. But more importantly, even if we do accept that the show just wanted to be a fun Disney movie, does it really do a good job at that? Do people like those movies because they ignore their protagonists and reject any kind of thematic or narrative throughline? I mean, I'm not a connoisseur of the genre, but it seems to me that at the beginning of High School Musical, Troy has to deal with the conflict of wanting to be an actor when everybody expects him to play basketball.
Why am I feeling so wrong? My head's in the game, but my heart's in the song.
And at the end, it's still about Troy. He gets what he wants.
I'm watching Cisco pit-a-pat.
He's an actor.
Said, I can do that.
Look at him act his heart
I
out.
can do that.
And the reason for this is simple. High School Musical is competent. It follows through with its characters and succeeds at being a fun Disney movie. Rachel, Jack, and Ashley 2 doesn't. It's just lazy writing any way you slice it. So let's move on and talk about the first episode of the 5th season, Striking Vipers. And this one's really interesting because it sort of has the opposite thing going on as Rachel, Jack, and Ashley 2. Where RJ and A just feels like it's drowning in material. The grieving teenager, the unhappy pop star, the Ashley robot, that robot becoming sentient, the Ashley hologram. Striking Vipers just feels incredibly pared down, diligently focused on its core mechanic. Two friends find that when they enter a video game and become characters in it, they are impossibly attracted to one another, so much so that the protagonist cheats on his wife. That's about it. And we don't even really know why these two like having sex with each other so much. Sure, the protagonist feels fat and old and nostalgic about the past. His buddy likes to have sex in a body that has boobs and a vagina.
It's crazy. I mean, it's different. Like, the physical feeling of it is more sort of...
But there's not much more to it than that. And on some level, I think this is a sort of clever choice. Because, if nothing else, this episode is about the arbitrary nature of love. Toward the very end of the episode, the two men try kissing each other outside of the game and feel nothing whatsoever.
Nope. Not a damn thing. Not me neither.
And we're left with some interesting questions. What is this infatuation? What is it about this game that makes these men want one another? And if all they have is this virtual reality, Is that desire real or meaningful? And by not answering these questions, the episode tells us, I don't know. Maybe there's something here, maybe they love each other for a reason, but if they do, we can't say what that reason is. Maybe it's just random, and these guys happen to find a strange place where they wanted to be together. That's all. That's enough. But as much as I like this idea on paper, I can't help but feel like it wasted opportunities to explore that randomness, that sense of hollowness, in a more intricate and satisfying way. For instance, striking vipers, the game in the episode, is a really interesting landscape. Like, these two men go into a virtual reality, occupy different bodies, and have sex. But fundamentally, the space that they enter is constructed, authored. The characters act like they are inhabiting real people, but they're not. They're inhabiting characters, fake avatars who are specifically designed to arouse straight teenage boys. The protagonist's love interest, he doesn't just become a woman when he has sex, he basically becomes Chun-Li, who wears a tiny skirt and has an optimal bod and who is deeply artificial.
Check this shit out.
So, what does that mean? Does it tell us something about this romance? Is it important to these guys in some way? I don't know. They never tell us. Or another example, how does queerness work within this narrative? See, we have a dude here whose best sexual experiences occur in a virtual reality game where he's playing as a woman having sex with a man. And I don't really feel like I gotta say much about this besides, what's going on there? That's interesting. I'm not asking him to freak out because he's ostensibly a straight guy who's now attracted to a dude while he's a woman. Honestly, I kinda liked that nobody tried to stigmatize it or whatever. But come on, if I had that experience, I'd have thoughts on it, be a little shook, question some things about my gender and sexuality. Do I really like being a woman, or do I just like occasionally having a vagina? Why am I attracted to dudes only in this synthetic world? What does sexual preference even mean when you can be anything you want and have sex with anything you want?
You know, I even fucked Tundra, the polar bear character.
But again, even though we feel like these questions are important, we don't get to see them being important. None of the characters even care. It's weird. And look, I'm not saying the episode should have spoon-fed us these ideas. It's okay for media to be subtle, but I just feel like the story doesn't give us a chance to explore any of these dynamics. I mean, the most important moment in the whole thing, where the two find out they have no chemistry when they're in person, happens right at the end. But why not be bold, right? Why not have that scene at the very beginning and let us see, in depth, how our characters deal with that fact? And even if they end in the same place, with a sense of randomness and confusion, that ending could have felt more earned, more rich, more specific to the episode. Striking Vipers could have addressed what this arbitrary, weird relationship says about our protagonists, about sexuality, about video games and virtual reality, about love. But instead of engaging with any of that, most of the episode is just spent with a dude sneaking around on his wife. Oh no, my relationship is getting strained while I see hot other womb. It's not nearly as interesting to me. So the episode has good bones, has a lot of cool stuff to play around with, but I'm P. Hongo. I wanted the delicious thematic meat off of those bones, and I didn't get it. The third and final episode we're going to talk about is Smithereens. Now, I actually have a fair amount less to say about this one than the others because it is, far and away, the most competent episode of the season. The writing is tight, the acting is good, particularly that of the protagonist, and it has a simple, nice idea to it. Centering on a man who takes someone hostage so that he can talk to the CEO of a social networking company, Smithereen, the episode centers on the idea of being heard. That's what the protagonist, Chris, explicitly wants. For someone important to hear him.
Oh, Jesus! Fucking Christ! Speak like a fucking human being! You said you hear me, so fucking hear me!
That's what the police and Smithereen are doing, listening in on his conversations. More broadly, the episode suggests that in the new age, where social media is everywhere, people don't really listen to each other. And sure, just saying that last part did make me cringe a little bit. Reminds me of a sign you'd see at an awful boomer restaurant. But still, tone, polish, and focus really save the day here. I like that nobody in this society is malevolent, wants to do harm. Instead, they're all just people who want to resolve this situation, who want to help.
It wasn't supposed to be like this. Our whole platform, I swear to God, it was one thing when I started it, and then it just, I don't know, it just became this whole other fucking thing.
I like the overwhelming bureaucracy and feeling of claustrophobia that the episode evokes. Like, you're always on the line with someone, you're always getting your complaint heard, but you can never get anywhere with it.
I'm gonna put you back on hold. I promise you we are working on it.
Don't be long!
I don't know, it all just worked for me. But considering all that, I do think the ending of the episode could have been a lot stronger and less messy. Like, in his big speech in the last act, Chris confesses that the reason he's so upset is that he is somewhat responsible for his wife's death. He was looking at Smithereen notifications on his phone when a drunk guy crashed into him.
What could I say to her? Nobody wants to hear them. Their daughter is dead because I was looking at my fucking phone.
And honestly, I just thought that was bland and needless. How does that confession tie into the overall motif of hearing and being heard? What does his partial responsibility for this tragedy really add to the thematic gesture of the episode? I guess that, like the CEO of Smithereen, this guy got involved in a system that got way out of hand. Maybe that kinda works, but still, I'm not really feeling it. It's a moment that should have felt big and important, and instead it fell flat, has a sort of after-school, don't text and drive vibe to it. Also, what's the deal with the way the protagonist dies? As the hostage tries to prevent Chris from killing himself, the cops see it as a threat and shoot him.
They're struggling. Have you got a clear shot?
I kind of feel like that's the twist of the episode, but it's a twist that tells me nothing about this world and adds nothing to its thematic dimension. It was just a cool little turn of events, I guess. Probably the most confusing thing of all in the final act is this montage that happens. See, these two images occur back to back. This woman finally being able to access her dead daughter's social media account because of what the protagonist did, and the cops shooting the protagonist. When you put a montage in a film, it establishes that there's some relationship between the two things being depicted. But what is the relationship between these two things? What does their juxtaposition add or say? A mistaken shooting and a happy woman. I've thought about it for hours and I can't figure it out. All in all, the ending of the episode made me feel dumb and disappointed. I imagine some commenter is gonna come in and be like, actually, this is what the juxtaposition is supposed to signal to the audience. And I'll be like, wow, I sure do feel stupid now. Thanks, Big Joel. The commenter was me all along. That's the twist of this video. Anyway, is that fair? To think less of an episode because I personally couldn't untangle its elements? Well, maybe not. but something tells me that I'm not going to be satisfied by the explanations angry commenters are going to give me for these things. We'll see, I guess. So, was there a point to any of this, or was I just being catty about media that I didn't personally enjoy? Well, yes and yes. See, I think there's a growing culture, one that I've personally contributed to, of ignoring as much as possible where a work succeeded or failed. It's a very subjective thing, liking a bit of media, and even though the 5th season of Black Mirror breaks some pretty obvious rules of storytelling, pay attention to your protagonist, be as specific as possible, direct the audience's attention to the salient questions of your work, that's all I can really say about it. It broke some rules. Who cares? They were made to be broken. And even though I didn't think they accomplished very much by breaking these rules, if you liked these episodes, liked the choices they made, well, that's fine. I won't be your friend, obviously, but I have nothing else to offer you. And that's alright by me. In most of the videos I've made, and in most of the videos I intend to make, I don't want to conclude with a message as personal as I didn't like a thing. But even so, there is a place for that, right? How much we like media may not be provable, but it is important. And every so often, I think it can be fun and interesting and telling to just sit down and be rude about a show that you didn't like. Hey, thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. If you really loved it, maybe try to give me some money on Patreon. We're doing a patron-only live stream once a month now. I just recently made a change, and who's to say what that'll bring. Speaking of patrons, now it's time for my Patreon question of the video. Dan Mini Golf Wizard Harvey asks, I would really like to know what you think the best Pokemon is. And the answer, as far as I'm concerned, is Alakazam, because he's a big sexy boy. That's it. Full answer. Done. Big sexy boy Alakazam. Oh, also, special thanks to Leftist Tech Support. Cool work. Okay, thank you so much. Bye.